there will always be at least a couple of cars from my childhood that I will consistently refer to as the OGs. Cars of my generation that just cemented my love and passion for the automotive industry as a whole, and ones that continue to inspire new and up-and-coming enthusiasts to reach their goals day after day. But out of that entire assortment, there's always been one car that to me and many others has had the same question hanging over its head. How do you have the most driving fun here in 2023 without spending a whole lot of money and buying a whole lot of car? Well, you know, there are many ways you could go with that topic, but if you really want my answer, it's sitting right here. Isn't it amazing that even though we live in a world now that's obsessed with the most futuristic technology like hybrid and EV everything, that somehow the world still feels there is a solid fit, not just in our industry, but even in automotive history, for small little fun-to-drive two-seat roadsters like the Miata. And I'll be honest, not just as an enthusiast, but as an everyday person, even if Mazda decided to can the Miata name tomorrow, there is no way that this fun little Japanese car could ever go out of date. And you could never forget it even if you tried. I mean, I'm a child of the late 80s and the early 90s, and that was when the Miata was in its heyday. It introduced the world to a sports car that not only could be reliable, but one that could favorably take down cars from Germany, from Great Britain, and so on, and still attract the masses like crazy. The only thing now that has changed between then and 2023 with cars like this Club RF that I'm driving right now is the price tag. Because this particular one I'm driving with its hardtop roof and its extra no-charge options is $41,000. Ouch. Now, you just heard me call this car the Club RF, so let's break that down a little bit. The Club trim is pretty self-explanatory. Think SCCA, you know, Sports Car Club of America kind of stuff. It's meant for the more hardcore, the performance-driven enthusiast, and even though it doesn't have any extra performance from its specially built 2-liter Skyactiv 4-cylinder connected to a mechanical-feeling 6-speed manual transmission, but the important part is the RF. It stands for retractable fastback. And when I think Miata, I think of pop the top, throw the roof all the way back, and you've got millions of miles of sky to enjoy for the rest of your drive. This, though, it's more like a Miata Targa, if you will, because the giant buttress that sits on the back just goes up, so just this little part of the roof in the middle can go back into a special compartment, and then it closes. So now you've got this slightly open-aired Miata, but at the same time, there is one major drawback. If you're even remotely tall like I am, it somehow feels like you're stuck in an F5 tornado. It's just wind for days, and the worst part is right here. Not only is there a big blind spot next to your head, but also that wind is buffeting around right next to your ear, and it doesn't exactly make me feel the most comfortable when I've got the roof off of this thing. Oh, she's still a live one. Woohoo, she is fun. And for a car that weighs as much as a blade of grass, I mean, 181 horsepower doesn't really sound like a whole lot, but then again, straight line speed has never been the Miata's ace in the hole. That title belongs to its handling, and the Club trim is exactly what you want in a Miata. Quite frankly, I remember it being almost exactly the same as it was 3 years ago when I first drove a Miata Grand Touring with the same hardtop configuration on it. But still, something feels a little more special about this car. It feels a little more taut, a little more firm, and yet somehow things like the suspension remain perfectly compliant. It's not too juddery, it's not too jarry, it's not the hardest thing I've ever felt. It's actually a pretty pleasant car to drive on the daily. That little Skyactiv engine is certainly a rev-happy little sucker, especially when it's connected to a manual. And yes, you can get an automatic in one of these, but what's the fun in that? And while that engine does make a fantastic noise, and I absolutely love wringing its little neck out with the manual transmission any chance I get, it's not the worst noise the Miata will make, because that title belongs to the road noise in here. I mean, I kind of expected it from a convertible, let alone a hardtop Targa convertible-ish kind of thing, but still, combined with the little squeaks of wind noise I've been getting up from, say, around where the top of the roof meets the windshield, it doesn't matter whether you're driving along at 30 miles an hour or 65 miles an hour like I am right now. It is very loud in here. But it's a sports car, so could I complain about it too much? Not really. But you wouldn't really want to do a long trip in this car, considering your ears will definitely not be thanking you in the long run. Whew, okay, that's more of a rush than I needed, but let's slow things down a bit and talk about the Miata's styling. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter which generation of these cars you're talking to me about, they're just so damn cute. And I don't really like using that word that often because, well, frankly, it just makes me cringe, but it's perfect. It looks like a Tylenol pill with 4 wheels on it, that short little butt at the back, the decent sized greenhouse at the middle, and of course this long hood housing that Skyactiv powertrain up front. But on top of that, Mazda knows how to make a damn good color as well, because look at this, the machine gray metallic, just perfect for a sportier club model like this. But also on the same subject of being cute, again, as much as I don't like using that word, does it not look like every generation of Miata is always just so happy to see you? This one, though, looks like it has something more menacing in mind. I mean, look at those eyes, for example, slimmed down. You've got these angular shapes now. I kind of wish they brought back the pop-ups, but that's just the 90s child in me speaking. They're almost all LED, though. You got LED daytime running lights, not only here, but you have them down in the lower corners as well. But you also have your LED main beam, but you do not get LED turn signals. That's not really surprising on a more sporty model like this. But look at that happy little face. Doesn't it just look like it's ready to jump up and lick you? Okay, I'm done with the cute puns, but this one, again, has a little bit more of a menacing intention in mind. Not only does it have, well, a bit of a goatee with the appearance package and this black lip spoiler on the bottom, but it also has these little nostrils here on the front, which they don't go anywhere, which that's a bit of a disappointment too. And at just over 154 inches long, give or take a tenth or two, this car to me is the perfect size for a compact 2-seater roadster, let alone one with such an illustrious history to go behind it at the same time. But if you like history, here's a fun fact for you. Would you believe that this current generation ND Miata is 1.25 inches shorter than the car that started it all for me back in my childhood in the late 80s and 90s? Yeah, you heard me right. The ND is smaller than an NA. That to me is just hilarious. But what is not hilarious, and should be absolutely hilarious if someone doesn't go for this no-cost option, is picking out your wheels. On this club trim, you can get 17-inch BBS lightweight forged alloy wheels dressed in black to set off this dark gray perfectly. And again, no cost. You can add them on at any point in time, except for maybe if they're an afterthought to you, and just, you'd be crazy not to go for these. Same thing with, oh, what's that little red thing back there? Oh yeah, those are Brembos. Did I mention that's a no-cost option either? And considering we've already covered that this car is very expensive, not only for the size that it is, but just what you're getting in general, you do actually get some pretty cool stuff, especially, again, going back to that no-cost options list. With the appearance package, you can have a black roof, which is always nice. You can get the blacked out mirrors as well, which do come with blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. That's a nice little touch. You can also get the side sill extensions down at the bottom, and most obviously, you get Mazda's advanced keyless access system thrown into the package already. I do love Mazda's newer key. It fits nicely in your pocket. All the buttons are here on the side, so you've got lock, unlock, trunk, panic, and of course the separate key blade that comes out of the back of the key via the back end that slides off. But there are no touch points on the door for unlocking or locking. Instead, there's the more traditional Mazda button here on the door. Right now, the car is unlocked. As you can see, you push the button once. One beep indicates it's locked. Push it again, and now you can get in. And before you even get to the RF's posterior, just take a moment and admire just how sleek this car looks with the roof up. Yes, I know with the roof down, you've got that space missing right there in the middle, but I think this RF version adds a much more sleeker profile to the Miata silhouette overall. I don't know what it is, but on soft top cars, Miata or not, I find the convertible top gets to about here and then it just drops off. It just doesn't look right when you have the soft top up on a car such as this, but having it in a hard top version, I think creates a much better aesthetic appeal for something even as small as this car. But coming around to this car's bubbly little rear end, there's not really too terribly much to speak of. You've got the little black lip spoiler, again, part of the appearance package. Same thing with the black lip down there at the bottom. This one does have partial LED taillights. You've got the LED main lights, LED reversing lights, but again, just like the front, you have incandescent turn signals in there. And you also have two antennas on this car. One little shark fin in the middle. I'm assuming that's for like your satellite radio. And then you also have a more traditional one, kind of a hark back to the old days, if I'm honest. And if somehow you're thinking that this RF model with its folding hardtop is somehow any more practical than its soft top sibling, that's a negative on that one, Ghost Rider. The Miata has never been a practical vehicle at all. And you can use the key or even the little button down there by the license plate. And once you open up this tiny little rear end, well, you're faced with a bit of a dilemma because there's only about 4.5 cubic feet of usable cargo volume. That said, the trunk is a little bit deeper than I remember. There's a nice little well going on right here in the middle. So it's more than enough space for, say, like a small suitcase, maybe a couple of backpacks, or at least a suitcase and a backpack combo, however you want to organize it. But anything that's bigger than, say, what I just mentioned, trying to go back here, you're going to have to use the passenger seat for that one. Now, with outward appearances being everything, I can confidently say that most people of a decent height or size will take one look at this car right off the bat and say that hardtop or not, fitting themselves inside of a car like this is going to be like squeezing one into a shoebox. And you know what? You're not wrong. I thought the same thing at over 6 feet tall when I first drove this new generation Miata over 3 years ago at this point. But now getting back into it all this time later, granted, I'm in a club trim, not the Grand Touring like I was before, there are still some things that surprised me about this car. The first of which is that even though the steering wheel is much larger than I remember, and honestly, I think that's one of the downsides to this, even though I have quite a lot of legroom, you can pull the steering column out to kind of increase the room you have a little bit. I feel like the size of the wheel is a little more CX-5 rather than MX-5. Granted, it does have a nice thin rim with the little grips up top. It's got the nice leather-wrapped exterior, and it has all the buttons you could want. You've got cruise control, media controls, Bluetooth, voice recognition. You get the idea. On that same note, however, anybody who is looking to buy a Miata Club specifically, there is one option I highly, highly recommend out of everything in this car, which are the seats. We have the optional Recaro leather and suede bound buckets in this one, and the bolsters in the seating position is absolutely perfect. The bolsters sit right at my midsection. They hug me nice and tight. They're not too intrusive. And when you're actually sitting in them, looking out of this tiny little windshield here, they're just perfect. I feel a lot more like a driver sitting in this particular car here. Once you get past the few little niceties, however, things do get back to the basics. You look at the screen, it's 7 inches in size. It has Mazda's Connect infotainment system. It has Android Auto. It has Apple CarPlay. It even has the government mandated backup camera. All nice modern touches. But in my mind, the coolest part about this is when you have the roof down and you turn on the 9-speaker Bose audio system. And you may be thinking, that's kind of pointless. You put the roof down, you wouldn't be able to hear anything, right? Wrong. It has 9 speakers for a reason, because they're hidden in certain places, like the speakers in each of the headrests. Now kind of a signature on most of the Miata trims with the Bose audio. And you know what? Whether roof down or roof up, you turn on this system, and after hearing a lot of Mazda and Bose collaborations over the years, my expectations of this one have definitely been met and or possibly exceeded in some ways. Aside from the modernness that is the screen, however, everything else in this club trim is just as basic as you could ask for. Single zone climate control system, this one being the retractable hardtop. It does have the power top controls down by your right knee. With the optional Recaro buckets, however, you also get heated seats in those as well. Nice touch, but not really necessary. You've got 2 USBs for smartphone connectivity. And speaking of smartphones, at least those of us who have a more average size one, there's a nice little cubby just in front of the shifter here that's just the right size for an average size smartphone. You could also probably fit your wallet in there, assuming you aren't carrying a fat wad of cash in it. And also with this one having the manual transmission, you ain't got to worry about shaving skin off your knuckles either, because not only is the shifter assembly so small, but there is such little travel when traveling through the gears. Your hands will definitely thank you for that one. It's also got a manual e-brake. I'm very happy to see that. No electronic interference with that. Speaking of electronics, however, you still have the infotainment controls down here in the middle, as I was mentioning before. And when it comes to storage and practicality, well, you've got one little cubby there. You've got what is supposed to be your glove box right here in the middle, and that doesn't look like it can hold very much either. And then, of course, what happens when you want to store your drinks in here? Well, Mazda thought of something for that. They've put 2 little cup holders back here by your elbow. Now, one might worry that you might whack your drink, as I probably would have just then. Or just suppose you have a passenger who wants a drink. Well, reaching around from this seat over to here ain't gonna do you very much good. But Mazda thought of something for that as well by giving you interchangeable cup holders. Now, where am I gonna put this? Oh, you can put it down here in the passenger footwell, and it is a little bit fiddly, if I'm honest, but once you actually get it in, it seems perfectly reasonable. Although I will say, if you have a passenger who wants any kind of legroom at all, well, that is going to impede on that just a little bit. And on that note, boys and girls, this now wraps up our review and drive of the 2023 Mazda MX-5 RF. You know, I said in the beginning of this video that buying one of these is one of the best ways to have a whole lot of driving fun without spending a whole lot of money or even buying a whole lot of car. Well, you're really not buying a whole lot of car due to its diminutive size, but this is 2023. Inflation has hit us harder than ever, and even something like this is even far more expensive than something I would be comfortable spending my money on. And more so, I would say that the soft top version would be the more purist focused driving experience compared to the sleeker looking hardtop, which is a little bit heavier, and it also doesn't provide the true wind in the hair experience that one might want. However, all that aside, if you enjoyed this video today, or perhaps you learned something about the MX-5 in general, please give this video a thumbs up, and also while you're at it, hit the subscribe button down below, because trust me, stuff like this does not happen very often, and it would not be possible without subscribers and viewers like yourselves and partnerships like Mazda North America. But in the end, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.